condors to the wild for over 20 years. And in fact, a lot of the same people that were working on that are still working on that today. Joe Burnett and myself included. And we have a wonderful team that has been working tirelessly to rebuild the condor flock in Central California. And starting this year, we had 100 birds. And of course, Dolan fire that burned through was quite devastating. And we lost 9 free-flying condors and 2 chicks. So today's release is even more important that we rebuild the numbers and get back to releasing condors to the wild. So very excited about that, since that is our whole, or not our whole mission, but a big part of our mission. This is in San Simeon that you're seeing right now. Thankfully, we have 2 condor sanctuaries that we can work with. I'm going to ask everybody to please mute. I'm almost done, I promise. Okay, thank you. So we have the big Sur Condor Sanctuary that was damaged heavily by the Dolan fire, and we're rebuilding as we speak. And then here is San Simeon release site. Both are coastal release sites in Central California. Anyway, with that, I'd like to turn it over to Joe Burnett, who will give us a quick presentation, and then we're going to let these 5 birds go, and hopefully all 5 come out of the pen today. But you know, if they don't, that's all right too, and we'll have Joe explain more about that. So go ahead, Joe.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, exciting day. We had a little drama last night. We had some weather roll into Big Sur, and fortunately the rains didn't make it all the way down to San Simeon. Just they got a few light sprinkles, but that's about it. So they actually have, the crew is reporting clear skies and perfect release conditions. So we're excited to get things going. And again, the crew, I want to recognize, they're down there in the trenches today. We got Darren and Evan and Stephanie and our 2 interns, Mo and Jonathan. They've been working really hard all week to get us where we are right now. So let's not forget them today. As I'm talking away here, they're actually down there in the blind. They're going to be there firsthand live watching this. And again, this is a great opportunity to share what we do with you guys and have you guys join in the excitement of watching condors take their first steps to freedom. So it's a real genuine thing that we get to observe today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to give a quick update because I know a lot of people have questions about how the birds we released are going to do. And the point of I just want to give the whole rundown here is, if I give this presentation, there's going to be time for questions after I give the presentation as we're releasing birds. So we're going to be on the air, so to speak, from 9 to 10:30. And Mike and I will be here to answer lots of questions and field your comments. So this is more of just a quick update, and then we're going to get to releases because I know the crew down there is excited to let these birds out. So let's get to it here. I'm going to share my screen. All right, everybody see that? Thumbs up?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again for joining today. We had the excitement of adding this cam this year. This was kind of a bonus, you know, in light of what happened with the fire, as Kelly mentioned, was such a huge setback. But we had Ranch Wi-Fi and Explorer step up to the plate and deliver big time. And we were able to get this camera in kind of last minute to bring releases live to all of you. So we can't say thank you enough to those guys. And again, all of our donors and supporters, all of you, everyone has just been awesome. All of our partners have stepped up, really had our back. Can't say enough about that. So this is the cam. You can see it here. It's sitting right outside the pen, looking right at where the action is going to be today. So we had initially started with 7, as everyone knows, and we released 4 a couple weeks ago, or actually 3 weeks ago. And then there were 3 in the pen, but we actually gained 2. We last minute, again, our partners knew about our big losses in the fire, and they were able to get us a couple more birds to release this year. There were actually 4 additional birds that came down. 2 went to us, and Pinnacles is releasing the other 2. So pretty exciting development. And of course, we were happy to get the extra birds this year with considering what happened. Yeah, so these 2 birds, 974 and 990, they are yet to be named, but they will soon be named. We'll let you know when that happens. They came to us from Boise to San Simeon on November 21st. So the backstory to these 2 birds, they were part of a group of birds that were at Oregon Zoo. And at the end of the summer this year, the Oregon Zoo is threatened by wildfire, similar to what happened in Big Sur. Their structure and facility almost was burned down from a late season fire up in Oregon, and they had to evacuate all the birds. They had pre-release birds in there that included 974 and 990 and 4 others, and they were all transported as an emergency basis to the Peregrine Fund's Boise World Center Birds of Prey in Boise, Idaho. And so this was the new home, temporary home for these birds. And we coordinated with Fish and Wildlife to get these birds down to Big Sur. And that was a big thanks to flights donated by Lighthawk. They flew the birds from Boise down to Paso Robles, where our crew met them and drove the birds up to the airport. You can see the pictures here. These are perfect size planes. So big shout out to Lighthawk, and these pilots donate all their time and their airplanes to help assist wildlife conservation. So we can't say enough for them. Once 974 and 990 showed up, we of course did our normal routine of making sure they had ID tags, radio tags, and radio GPS transmitters, just like the other birds. So we have 5 birds in there now that are ready to go out today. The 4 we released back in November, they are doing great. Again, that was Wasuk, Mursh, Peachy, and Teach. These guys are doing great. The crew reported that they spent the first. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know what you missed, but anyway, the first release group, I'm happy to report, is doing really, really well. You saw a couple of them on the cam this morning feeding out in front of the pen. They're going to be there to greet the new guys today, so that's even better. But they did exactly what we'd hoped. They stayed close to home the first couple weeks, and now they're beginning to take test flights. Wasuk is actually out on a big flight right now. He's not too far away, but he's probably about 5 miles away from the release site. So we're looking forward to seeing how he gets back. But pretty exciting to see the birds taking these first test flights, and we expect the same from the next 5. And again, they're all very socially interconnected, and they have lots of social bonds. So I think they're excited to see each other again, the birds that were released obviously before these guys. So here's some cool photos really quick. These were taken by Stephanie on our crew. She's an incredible photographer, and she was able to capture some photos of these birds right after release the last couple weeks. And you can see they're spending a lot of time. Condors like to perch in big trees. This is a great place for these young birds to be, up in a big, large tree, protected from the weather, protected from predators. So they're doing all the right things. And you can just see in their faces just how curious they are. They're now free. I think it's just really a big time sensory overload to these young birds. Yeah, and these are, we have the radio tags and GPS, but it's really hard to get visuals of these young birds just because they're kind of blend in really well into their environment. You can see here that even this bird flying almost blends in with the background. So we get these fleeting glimpses of the birds, of these young guys learning how to fly. And this is one of the first flights for, I believe, for Peachy. So this is kind of cool to see. We noticed young birds overexert themselves. They kind of overcompensate, and they haven't learned all the nuances of flying yet. So I think this photo is pretty cool, and it captures that kind of overexcitement that they get when they first start flying around. And this bird's picked a perch, probably not the best one. It probably won't stay there too long. It's this spindly little snag tree, but hey, it's working. It's a temporary spot. This bird's trying to gain its balance. Again, they're just simplest things like that are a big deal when you take your first flights out in the wild. And here's Peachy. You can see this is just an awkward wing flap. You know, he's overexerting, just taking in that this ability, this freedom to be able to fly. I mean, I can only imagine that brain overload they get realizing that they have these wings and they can fly with them. So I love this photo that Stephanie took. It really captures that moment of awe for these birds. Here's Mursh, and this is a great shot of Mursh taking off. I think Mursh is on the cam this morning, but this bird's been doing really well. You can see it taking a nice launch here into flight, looking a little more comfortable. This is what we want to see. I also wanted to give a quick update, and I can talk more after we start releases, but the status of the rescued chicks, and Nico and 1033, who has been aptly named Eva, short for evac, by the LA Zoo crew. And they are both together. Really exciting news. They are both together for the first time in the same pen. And this is the photo below here is of a Nico and an Eva meeting for the first time. So that happened just this past week. And again, a big shout out to LA Zoo. They're caring for these birds. And Eva's had some issues. She had an injury that they're still trying to evaluate. And they're hoping that she makes a full recovery. Everything's looking pretty good so far. So again, keep your fingers crossed. She's in good hands, as is Aniko. And Aniko is doing really well. All the reports are great coming from the zoo folks. And again, big shout out to LA Zoo, one of our really important partners in Condor recovery. So good news there. And the status of our wild chicks, chick 1030 has fledged. And this is our last visual of 1030. We're trying to spot this chick. It's now fledged, so it's out moving around without radio tags on. We're following the parents around trying to get a visual, but Big Sur backcountry is just really hard to navigate. The crew's been diligently trying to get a visual. We know the chick is likely just fine, but we probably won't get a visual until this chick shows up at the release site on the Big Sur Sanctuary Camp. So definitely keep your eye out on that cam. If you see an untagged bird, definitely post it on the comments on the Explore page or the YouTube feed. That's actually a good heads up for us. Yeah, we're excited. This chick's doing really well. At Pinnacles, there's 3 chicks that have fledged, and they're doing really well. A couple they haven't seen, but they assume everything's fine based on what the parents are doing. So yeah, we're pretty excited with how things have gone since the fire. You know, we're starting to in that rebuild mode. The flock's kind of making some progress. So, you know, it's the bounce back time. And that's why these releases today are just so important. So today's release group, we have the cast of characters here. I was making sure I got the gender right for 956. This is a male, and it's Huchin. So the X is pronounced as an H. And again, these are names provided by local tribes, and we thank them for providing those this year. It's really cool connection for the condors to the Native American heritage. 962 is one of our females, and this is pronounced Soto. And as you guys who participated in the last Zoom, we had our guest, and she was helping us walk through the different pronunciations. I thought that was really, really interesting. And then we have 994, a male, and this is pronounced Hawking, so the X is another H sound. And again, we have our 2 newest additions, 974 and 990, 2 more males. So this is our release group today. And one last check-in with our crew. I'm going to send the message. Everybody's ready. I'm going to go ahead and send the message to get the release going. We're going to switch back over to Kelly here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. He's going to put the live stream up. Let me get here. Oops. All right, Kelly, you got it there?
Yeah, should see it now.
Excellent. Okay, let's
So
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and let the crew know. And there's a little bit of a, like before, there's a little bit of a delay, folks. So just stand by. I'll let you know when it's going to happen.
So while that's taking place, would you remind everybody which Condor this is on the outside of the pen?
Oh, that's 966. And 966 is Peachy. So Peachy will be there to greet him. That's awesome.
Fantastic. Perfect.
All right. I've let him know. So here we go. So you guys are watching that. I'm going to be doing some camera operating. And let the excitement begin. Hey, Kelly, what time does it say on the camera that you guys are watching?
9:16 and 20 seconds.
Okay, we're in about a minute, that door is going to open.
Okay. Fantastic.
Pretty exciting. So sometimes when we open these doors, it just doesn't, the birds just don't go registered. Let's just go right out there. So it usually takes a minute or two for them to realize that this door is suddenly open.
Of course, Peachy feeding right outside the door might entice them out.
Yeah, that's the hope. And the crew came up with that idea this week. I thought it was a great one to place the food out there and get the birds going. Because really, if they can walk out versus taking a really crazy flight out the first time, it's really better if they walk out and kind of take their time, get a little meet and greet with the other birds. And that's really our first goal, is to get these birds feeding on the supplemental food on the outside. So we also have some we've had turkey vultures and ravens around, so they're actually all there's a few of those always around as well. So yeah, we're going to see what happens here, but the door should be opening up right around 9:17 and change, closer to 9:18. Here it goes. The door is opening. So now you place your bets to see who's going to go out first here.
I just want to say,
I have a little bit of an unfair advantage.
So Joe, I just want to say we have 331 people here joining us, and they're
awesome.
all over the world. I just love that. There's some silver lining in being cooped up in a pandemic, I guess. But just so you all know, 330 of us together.
Okay, who's going to be the first to go out here?
Yeah, like you said, Joe.
That bird was close. Whoever that was really close.
And like you said, Joe, it must just be such an amazing feeling at this moment for them. I mean, they don't even realize they're free yet. And it's almost like they're startled by the door. It's really, really interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's the classic. Like I always tell people, it's kind of when you're looking for something and it's right in front of you.
Hey,
yeah, there we go. 994 went out. So Hawking was the first to roll out of there. Oh, and that bird was right there. And another one. Exciting. Yeah, we have 974, who's now moved down to a carcass lower down. Yeah, so the two that went out were 974 and Hawking, number 94. Looks like somebody else is getting close. So picture perfect so far. And I believe Huchin is around. He was there earlier. So Mike, are we getting some questions or comments?
Well, a lot of comments, and one question that I can bring up is the meaning of the names that these birds have, particularly the indigenous names. Sure. Do they actually have meanings, and have we posted that on our website? Do you recall?
Yes, and those are on the website, and I can review those as well. So yeah, starting with 966 Peachy, that is in reference to the sacred Pico Blanco Mountain in Big Sur, which is a prominent peak for those of you that have been down to Big Sur. You can see it right from Highway 1. It has a whitish appearance, almost looks like a pyramid. Now the camera I've found here, first bird, there's 994, and we had 974 there a second ago. So we have 2 birds out of the 5, and we're still waiting on the other 3. So yeah, let's go ahead. So for 994, for Hawking, this means in the Rumsen language, which is a Selenian tribe, means to eat ravenously. And then we have, again, 974 is yet to be named. Looking at the other ones, 995 Teach. This means condor in the Antoni, I don't want to mess this up, but it's the dialect of the Selenian language. It means condor, so Teach. And then Wasuk is condor in the Rumsen language. Wasuk is number 968. And then Morsh is from the Rumsen language, meaning to be dark, which obviously all these young birds have the dark plumage, which is pretty appropriate. 956 is Huchin, and this means to be first in the Rumsen language. And then we have 962, which is Soto, and this means black in the Rumsen language. And I think that covers them. But yeah, those are also listed on the website. And Kelly, didn't we add, there's a button you can push to hear how they're pronunciated, to get the pronunciation correct?
Yeah, that's right. You can go to the page called Condor Releases, and all of those pronunciations are on that page and provided by Linda Yamani.
Very cool. All right. So we have 3 birds that are just taking their good old time this morning. So still remaining in the pen is 990. What else do we have in there? I'm trying to view in. Here, I'll get the, I'm going to view in on these guys on the inside. Hang on a second. Let's see who is up here on the perch. And again, there's a little bit of a lag, so we still have 962, who is Soto. She is sitting in the furthest inside the pen. And then the 2 on the ground, let's see, I just want to confirm. Should be the other 2. And they are super close to figuring this out. And that's, they are right there by the door. Yeah, we got Huchin and 990 right there by the door. They are so close. And again, if this takes them an hour or two to find their way out of the pen, that's fine by us. And I mentioned that last time. We're all about the birds taking baby steps and just really taking their time to get out the door. So it's really it's fine by us if they take a little bit longer.
Hey, Joe, Ed wants to know if the latest two birds from Boise have been with the others long enough to socially adapt and bond to the other released birds. Do we have any concerns about the time frame of these releases?
No, the fortunate thing is these two per the 974 and 990 were fortunately with other birds their age before they came here. So basically they were very well socialized before they came. And in terms of making a bond with the new group, it was seamless. They, within a day or two, they were, you could barely tell they were even ever not part of a group. So it was really cool to see these young birds, kind of bird of a feather, flock together. They came together socially really quickly, which was we assumed that that's the typical pattern. So yeah, it's a great question. But yeah, we had a great seamless basically socialization step there. So that was really nice.
Kimberly and excuse me, Kimberly and I think many others would like to know where are the birds going to go? Where do you expect them to go? And are there any patterns? And where would they spend the night tonight, do you think?
The great part about the San Simeon release site is it's surrounded by huge pine trees, and really incredible rock formations. So they can find plenty of places to get up off the ground. That's number one. Obviously, you don't want to be on the ground where at night ground predators could potentially come in and potentially try to predate these guys. So their instincts are strong to get up off the ground and find a good place to perch. And that's why we chose this release site and same with Big Sur, as we know after release, there's plenty of places for these birds to perch safely. All right, 956 just went out. One left. We have one more to go. So Huchin just went out, and right before that, we just missed. We missed 990 going out, but they're right around. I think they're joining the others down there in the feeding area. So I'll pan down there. And again, there's a little latency on this cam, so I apologize for that, but I'm trying to keep up with the action. Here we go. Let's see what we got going on here. This is really cool. So it looks they have moved down. These guys have all moved down to join the others. So really awesome to see this. There they are. So cool. This is pretty picture perfect, folks. We got 990 and and Huchin down there already feeding on their own on the supplemental food, and right below them are the other two from earlier. So we have one bird left.
And obviously, these are young birds. Question specifically, how old are these condors that are being released?
They're all right around a year and a half old. They'll basically this spring, most of them will be turning 2 years in age, and we try to mimic what happens naturally. The condors typically wean off, so to speak, from their parents at about a year and a half, 18 months in age, roughly. And so we try to make sure we release developmentally, match that with these pre-release birds. because we figure that if that's the way nature does it, that's the way we should probably do it for releases. And it works really well.
Hey, Joe, let me jump in a second. I just want to give a big shout out to the dairy farmers that we collaborate with. A lot of folks may not know where we get these calves, and that's where we get the stillborn calves from dairy farmers. And it's a really important collaboration that's been ongoing since we got our start back in 1997. And, it's definitely, a group of people that are kind of unsung heroes. And that's why I wanted to just give a shout out to all our dairy farmer collaborators. And the food that we put out is really important for these young birds because they're young and naive. It's also put out there to minimize the threat of lead poisoning. But you definitely understand that, when these birds get more established, they're finding food on their own all the time. And it's not meant to be their food supply as much as Joe put it, supplemental.
Yeah, and it is a really, really important tool for what we do. So we have all right, so we have one more bird left. And I think she is starting to figure it out. So we have Soto left. And she will hopefully, I'm going to move the camera back up to the pen. And we're really hoping she's taking her good old time, which is just fine by me. And I think she's catching on, though, that everybody else is outside and she's inside. So we're hoping she starts to make her move. I think it's inevitable. They're so social, as I was just talking about earlier. Condors of a feather flock together. They're definitely want to be with each other. There's protection in that. If you're in a group on the ground, especially as a condor, there's always somebody being a lookout. Basically, there's always a bird that's kind of watching while the others feed. That's a great strategy if you're a ground scavenger like condors. All right, there you go. I think Soto's on the move. Let's see. She is. Oh, there we go. She's making her way in. Let's see if she goes through the first door down there. And again, apologize for the latency on the camera, but we're beaming this signal from a really remote area. And again, big thanks to Ranch Wi-Fi for making it all possible. But we're beaming this out to you guys we're threading a needle, so to speak, on the on the cam signal here. So Ranch Wi-Fi worked their magic, and can't thank those guys enough. And they set up a really great system. So you can see there that door is closing behind her. So now she's isolated to the front area there, the front trap area. So we're gonna count down here. I think she's gonna go out pretty soon. Let's see what she does. So close. I love how timid they are. It is I think they totally know that door's there, but it's just, that's something in the wild where it's a really important survival strategy to be apprehensive and cautious about new things. Even like the door opening of that pen, we think condors are wired to just, the infamous cartoon of the condor waiting for something to die, but they have to be very careful on the ground. And I keep bringing up the potential ground predators. It's so instinctually hardwired in them when they're on the ground to be very cautious and just very observant. So if anything looks off, they just are they're instinctively driven to hold off and just watch. Which, if you're up in a tree waiting to feed on something, or up on a cliff waiting to feed on a whale that's washed up, say along the Big Sur coast, there could be a coyote just off in the bushes off the beach that could be waiting to feed on that as well. So condors will sit and watch a carcass for quite a while before they actually go down and feed on it, just to kind of pick up on any patterns of other ground predators. So really fascinating to watch. And we think that applies a little bit to here when we release them. People say, oh my God, the door is just wide open. Why aren't they going out? And it's just that that hardwired apprehension they have to be careful with new things and trying new things. So it's I think it's those natural tendencies kicking in. Oh, she's so close. Come on. Oh, no, not quite yet.
Hey, Joe, why don't you get a quick recap? I know we've had about 20 or 30 new people join us. So why don't you give a recap of where we are? And also definitely want to give another shout out to explore.org. None of this would be happening if it weren't for them, and just want to say thanks.
Yeah, gosh, yeah, between Ranch Wi-Fi and explore.org, of course. Yeah, huge. So yeah, so far this morning, shortly after 9, we opened up the doors and we've had birds slowly trickling out. We're down to the last Condor to be released today, 962 Soto, and she is very close to going out. We've had 4 others go out this morning, and we're just anxiously awaiting her to go out and join the others. The others are just outside the pen right now, feeding together on some of the supplemental carcasses. Oh, she's so close. Boy, the drama here is intense. But yeah, so we're right on track, and we have a beautiful weather today. It couldn't have been. We had a storm come in last night we were worried about, but thankfully it stayed to the north, and we have just a bluebird day to release condors. Couldn't ask for a better first day for these birds to go out. So we're glad you all are here watching it with us. Again, this is a really rare opportunity to watch birds take their first steps and flights into the wild. For us as biologists, it's like, watching somebody walk on the moon for the first time. It's pretty exciting for us. We put a lot of time into these birds. There's a lot of partners that help us get the birds to this point. The folks that raise them in the zoo and keep them isolated and keep them so wild for us. So when we bring them here, we just basically have to focus on getting them acclimated to the wild and prepared for a life in the wild for the remainder of their life. So pretty exciting. This is the final step to a great future. So we're always excited to be able to watch it, and then now to be able to share it with all of you is just off the charts awesome. So yep, we're still waiting on 962. She is just taking her good old time, and again, that is fine by us. And this is pretty normal, but I got a feeling she'll eventually she'll muster up the courage to go over to that door. She knows it's there. I'm convinced. She's just kind of a little apprehensive. So how many folks we have logged in so far?
We're at 360 participants. I think we're giving the Army-Navy game a run for their money. So, very much appreciate everyone who's logged in. People as far away as New Zealand. We've got New York, Michigan, Washington, Oregon, Canada, Illinois, you name it. And we're just so glad that everyone is sharing a little bit of their Saturday with us. Some questions on the carcasses, a lot of interest there. How many do we typically put out when we visit the release site? How many condors will one carcass feed? And are we concerned about ground predators? Do they show up on camera like at night? And is there a danger to the condors from other predators being attracted to these carcasses?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. Fortunately, whenever we set up a release site, we put up a perimeter fence, which includes electric fencing to keep ground predators out, especially for release birds that are still kind of honing those skills to be wary of potential ground predators. Because when they leave the safety of the release site, they're following the lead of the older birds and watching the influence they have and basically the skills they will need to survive. And our release method has worked really well. This template we use, this cookbook, so to speak, on how to release condors has worked really well in terms of teaching these birds, gaining that confidence, feeding on the ground. But again, that instinct to be wary of predators is so hardwired in condors. And most, honestly, most raptors, that they are keen to whenever they're on the ground, they're very cautious. Oh, here she goes. Soto's going out. I'm trying to keep the camera up here, folks. There's a little lag, but there she is. Oh, she's walking up to the pool, to the bath here. Let's see. She's the last one to go out. Let's see what she does. Which way is she going to go? Go join the others, or is she going to go get this other carcass by herself, which would be pretty smart. She'd have a whole carcass to herself right here. Yep, there she goes. Smart bird. How great is that? Look at that. She took a little longer, but you know, I think there was a strategy there. I think that was she was like, I'm gonna let all the others, I'm gonna let the boys go out and figure things out. See if the coast is clear, and then I'm gonna follow. I like that strategy. That was pretty good. And now she has a carcass all to herself. So somebody's definitely rising to the top here.
And
again, you know, carcasses are just for those who are, you know, sensitive to that, just be forewarned, these are dead animals. They are stillborn. They were born dead, but it is, you know, some of it is graphic. So just for those of you that are squeamish, please look the other way. But again, condors survive by eating on dead things. It's a dirty job. But it's such an important one. You know, nature scavengers are just as important as the predators. So it's, you know, they are nature's cleanup crew, and they serve a really vital role in the ecosystem, very underrated role in keeping diseases down and kind of being nature's purifiers. So having a big scavenger like condors back in the mix is definitely beneficial. And we've seen that firsthand along the Big Sur coast, where we have very large marine mammals that wash up periodically. And really, there's no other animal besides a condor, as big as a condor, that can handle these big carcasses. And I'm talking about full-size humpback, gray whales, large pinnipeds, you know, any of the finned marine mammals. You know, we got we've seen them feed on dolphins that wash up, sea lions, elephant seals, and you know, it's kind of a perfect meal for a group of condors. So. Yeah, their niche is very clear to us, and what their importance is in the bigger ecosystem picture. And again, this a little like zoomed in, maybe a little too much here, so just heads up to folks. It's a little graphic, so just turn away. I'm going to pan it back out here. But we like to get in and see how well they're feeding. Sounds gross, but it is important. These young birds, we make sure they're able to get in, and they're strong enough to get in and feed on these carcasses. And we've seen it inside the pen. That's part of our pre-release checklist to make sure they're strong, they're feeding strong enough and able to maintain their own, swing their own weight around. One thing we didn't talk about, inside the release pen, we have a mock power pole. And part of the pre-release training that's so important that release sites do is we have these mock power poles inside the pens, whereas if a condor lands on it, they get a mild shock, and it's just, and the birds quickly learn not to perch on the cross arms of power poles. And we've been doing this since the beginning of the program. In the mid 90s, this aversion training was adopted. It was first tested at LA Zoo, and proof of concept, so to speak. And then we've carried that out to the field, and it's amazing. It's been a really important tool in protecting and teaching condors not to land on these potentially hazardous human structures, which are power poles. Condors have a big enough wingspan to where they can potentially spread out their wings and connect to the two wires. And so the power pole aversion training has been really, really effective. And another great adaptive tool we came up with to help these birds on their way out. Because again, 1,000 years ago, even a couple hundred years ago, there were no power poles or no power lines, and these didn't present an issue at all to condors. And when you have a large soaring bird with the largest wingspan in North America, power lines and power poles can definitely present a hazard to you if you have a wingspan that large. So we worked, Pacific Gas and Electric has been really incredible with working with us on, they provide us the power poles and the insulators to make these mock power poles. They've been really active in helping protect the condors. They even removed a high-risk power line in Big Sur that was presenting a direct risk to the birds and buried it, basically put it underground. So that was a huge, we were really thankful for that, their cooperation and their support. And again, moving forward, the GPS transmitters on a lot of these birds have taught us more about how these birds move across the landscape, and help us work with groups like these power companies like Pacific Gas and Electric to mitigate the potential for any potential collisions or just areas that are hotspots for condors to reduce that risk. So yeah, so we have Soto is still here feeding away. She's got a carcass all to herself. And eventually I'm going to move it down to see how the others are doing. And they're all, there's a little latency here. So in a second, I'm going to pan back down. And again, thanks everybody for joining in. If you just joined in, we opened the doors roughly a little bit, about 15 minutes after the hour, at 9:15ish, 9:20. And we have had birds slowly walking out of the pen and getting released. And right now we just had 962. Soto is the last to go out. So all 5 have been released, and good news to report, all 5 are staying close and feeding on the supplemental carcasses we're providing. So things are going picture perfect for us. And they're actually being greeted by one of the birds we just released. So pretty cool to see a bird we released a few weeks ago. And again, this is the first time out in the wild for these 5. So they are just definitely taking it all in, so to speak. And we have beautiful weather today. The field crews down there, they've been down there all week getting ready for this eventful day, and we can't thank them enough. So we're excited to see the whole group here doing what we love to see them do on the first day, and that's hang out and feed with some of their buddies. And the one bird that's been hanging out is 960. Yeah, Peachy has been hanging out all morning. So Peachy was released a few weeks ago, and she's kind of been the she's been the meet and greet condor for the new guys. So and she is one of 2 females we're releasing this year. We're male heavy this year, but fortunately Pinnacles is releasing a few more females too. And on the captive side, we have no control over what the genders end up being. This year just happened to be this group of birds happened to be a little more male heavy, which is fine. Typically it alternates next year to be probably more females. So over time, and condors live so long, 40 to 50 years in the wild, in terms of having equal balance in the flock of males and females, it all balances out over the course of time. So so this year's group is definitely a lot more males. But yeah, there's 990 who went out this morning, and they are all together. That's Peachy's in there greeting these guys. And we have 962 feeding by herself up top. I'm sure she'll make her way down, and the others are probably going to make their way up to her. She's probably just out of view, so she's enjoying that carcass by herself right now. Any other comments, Mike?
Yes, a ton of comments and questions. One that I'll throw out is, when will you close the door? Now, do these birds have access back into the pen if they want to come back, or do you shut the door and they're on their own now in the wild?
Yeah, if we notice a bird that's hanging out, we would potentially reopen it. But for the most part, we want to encourage them to not to perch nearby. And unless we see a bird wanting to come back in, we'll leave those doors shut. And again, it's totally fine if a bird wants to come back in and it feels safer inside the pen for another night. We're ready and willing to do that. From my experience with this beautiful weather today and such an active group here outside, I think the excitement's going to be to follow the others and everybody. I got a feeling they're going to end up all together in a big pine tree nearby, and just taking it all in. So,
yeah, that's one of the questions from Ann is, will they stay together? How long do you think they might stay together? And what are the usual patterns in that sort of cohesive behavior?
Yeah, I mean, we see a lot of variation. You know, these birds form little cliques out in the wild, but for the most part, these young birds that are first time out in the wild, they're going to seek each other out for their first night in the wild. You can imagine it's probably a little scary for them out of the confines of the release pen, out in this big tree, and you can see all the stars, and you hear all the noises, and so I think their first night in the wild, I can only imagine it's they want to be close to their buddies.
Yeah.
But we see a lot of variation, but for the most part, they're either together in pairs, or we'll have up to, we will have sometimes over, 10 plus birds in one tree. And, they're so social those social instincts are strong in condors. And I think that's by design.
We have a lot of viewers that tuned in during the last release. I believe it was 3 weeks ago. And many are remembering that the releases today were much quicker than the previous one. And can we draw anything from that? Were the release birds today maybe watching the experience of the previously released birds, and maybe that encouraged a quicker departure from the pen? Or is there any reason that you can think of that why these birds may have left quicker today?
I would think that's it. I think the fact that they had one of their buddies out there, that they had been in the pen with, the first release, the only birds out there were birds they really didn't know well yet. Older birds, more intimidating birds in a way. To be able to see a bird that already out there feeding this morning and basically be in the welcome committee, I think definitely helped grease the wheels this morning for these guys. And again, even with that, you saw that, Soto was pretty apprehensive even with that. So it's really case by case. I think we always say that as, hear our field crew talk about that. These birds are all individuals, definitely, and they develop really unique personalities because they are so social as a species. And we really notice as these birds get older, those individual personalities become more apparent. And I think this is just it at its infancy. So even now, the fact that they have a buddy out there, I think was the big factor today. And that probably helped us. And the weather, today's just an amazing day. You couldn't ask for better circumstances for a release. And here we have 974 stretching his wings out. Pretty awesome. I'm going to zoom in here real quick. You can really see that wingspan. I mean, I think this is probably one of the signature poses of a condor when they sun their wings. And we get asked a lot, why do condors do this? And I think outside of just basically stretching your wings, it's basically a means to warm up their feathers, warm up their bodies. And there is evidence that shows that the sun, the UV from the sun, actually controls and kills off feather mites. So I think just the whole combination of factors go into it. But we notice a lot of condors, you'll see turkey vultures do the same thing, and it's always in the morning. The morning light comes up, and I think I don't know if it's to lighten their wings, prepare for flight. So 974 might be preparing for his first flight here any second. So this is pretty exciting, but this would be a normal routine for condors in the morning, warming up their wings. You see a lot of wild birds doing this before. It's kind of a pre-flight checklist. They get those wings stretched out, and you can see her here. Him here. He has his tail sticking out as well. So he's really just enjoying the time. Probably just enjoying the time to stretch. I do a morning stretch here and there, and I think it's probably not far from that.
There's a lot of discussion about the possible differences between the male and the female birds. Have you noticed any behavioral differences in the releases between the males and the females? Should we read anything at all about the fact that that Soto, a female, was the last one to leave? Is there a confidence pattern, or is it just more of an individual characteristic of each individual bird?
Yeah, I would lean towards the latter. It's definitely a individual thing. With these young birds, we really can't tell the differences behaviorally between males and females, and obviously there's no morphological differences in looking at them between size or plumage or anything or behavior. So yeah, I think that's just more. We base it more just on individuals because we have really dominant females, we have really dominant males. There's no real pattern there. I just think what I found with condors is what first you see with the eye isn't necessarily what you think. Some birds all have strategies, and raptors do the same thing. The most aggressive bird necessarily isn't the most dominant bird. It's really interesting with condors. That's typically a bird that's the most insecure and not confident. So a bird that's pushing birds around a lot necessarily isn't the dominant bird. So it's been a fascinating species to work with that way behaviorally, and we're literally learning as we go how these condors communicate. But I found that as someone who's worked with them so long that I've always been blown away by what I first see isn't exactly what it is. And as you watch and get to know the birds over time, which is really cool now because of these cams, we have a huge viewership now that has become getting an intimate knowledge of all these different personalities and these inner workings. And I think they can agree too that it's just not as simple as seeing a condor and A equals B kind of a thing. There's a lot more complexities to it, which is why I love working with this species. It's what I think behaviorally, and to see this with birds is really unusual. This level of social and kind of intellectual type social behavior it just blows me away. Just the depths of the behavior we see with these birds is really perplexing almost. It's not commonly known in the scientific world to have this level of social behavior with a bird species.
So we've had 5 birds released today, 4 birds previously, so a recent total of 9 in the San Simeon area. Joe, can you recap the totals for releases, including what pinnacles may have released, and what does that bring our Central California population to currently as we speak?
Yeah, good question, because obviously we've had some ups and downs this year. Obviously, more the big downs were the fires, and we've actually lost some birds to lead. On top of the fires, we also lost some birds to lead poisoning this year. So 2020, it's just been a humdinger of a year. But with the bounce back here with these releases, with Pinnacles releasing 4, we're releasing 9. We're gonna have 13 birds added to the flock. And you saw in my presentation earlier, we also have the wild fledge birds going out. So we have the 4 wild fledge, and for a Nico and Eva, they're not out of the mix either. I mean, they're not in the flock right now, but we're hoping we will have them in the release pen next year. So things are turning around. Right before the fire, we were just over 100 birds. And after we conduct these releases, which we have done, Pinnacles as well, and we have our wild fledge birds, we're almost right back up to over 100 birds. And we're right now crunching those numbers. We're waiting for Pinnacles to release the last two before we we confirm some of these wild fledges. But the fire was devastating. But fortunately, we were able to vamp up releases this year, and we had really good wild production despite the fire. We did lose 2 nestlings in the fire, and we had 2 evacuated, but we have 4 that are still thriving out there. And to have 8 total and 4 still make it is, in the wild is still a good year. So, and we have, like I said earlier, Nico and Eva are likely going to come out later. So we're looking good. It's easy to focus on the losses, but you got to pick up your bootstraps and start releasing and just keep looking forward. And fortunately, we have such a great flock. We lost some great birds in the fire, but it's time for some other birds. We've already noticed some other birds are definitely stepping up to the plate and leading the flock. So it's really cool to watch the resiliency of the population. And again, to have these new birds, I think is just these birds released today. It's very symbolic of where we're going to, where we've come from and where we're going. And again, we never thought we'd have a setback like this, but it's again, the outpouring of support, the support from our partners has just been overwhelmingly awesome. And I think this is a direct output of that. So a great day to celebrate, to be humbled by what happened, but at the same time, celebrate where we're going.
And it's certainly a great thing to get so many birds back out. It's a great recovery step from the fire. I will also add that numerically, we may be replacing birds that were lost, but value-wise, the loss of those birds in the fire was very, very devastating. We need to look towards replacing those breeding pairs and making sure that birds like Redwood Queen remate and can reestablish her breeding routine. And one question was, have we noticed any signs that Redwood Queen is possibly going to pair up with another bird?
We're watching closely. We're really hoping. It's really varies. Anytime something like this happens, we've had in past years, we've had pairs broken up by one of the mates will die of lead poisoning, for example, and that pair has to kind of one of the mates has to reestablish and find a new mate. And we've seen a lot of variation. I mean, it's usually within the first couple of years, but whether she has enough time to find a new mate and be comfortable enough to nest with a new mate is really up to her. And I would say there's no guarantee she will do it right away, but there's also a good chance we've seen females like her bounce right back, find a new mate. It really definitely mixed things up because we lost, in the direct fire, we lost 167 Kingpin. We lost a Pinnacles male 448. Those 2 were both nesting. And we also lost one of our longtime nesting females, 375. So like you said, Mike, it's really hard to even enumerate or put a value on what we lost there because they brought so much. They were not only had the tribal knowledge of being elder type birds, but they also were reproducing and helping sustain the flock. So her mate, 375's mate, he'll have to find a new female. And then of course, the widows of 448 and 167 will also have to find. So the good news is there are a lot of up and coming males. There's a lot of males that are definitely, and females that are looking for, to find a good bird to pair with. So the great news is they have a lot of options, and we just hope they start sooner than later. We're definitely, it's hard to replace a bird like Kingpin or even 448 or 375. Those birds are just, they'll be forever memorialized. You just can't replace birds like that. But again, it just provides an opportunity for these other birds to step up. It's not necessarily, because the fire was so unnatural, it was a possible arson, arson's being investigated. That part is hard to swallow, but at the same time, that could have happened naturally too. So we know that the birds have probably seen setbacks like this over their existence, and they've obviously been able to step up and figure it out. So we feel confident. But in terms of one redwood queen, she might be able to attract a male that's already paired with somebody else because she is so dominant. So possibly 219 pup daddy, or that's one option, and maybe even a younger male like Ninja, who was actually down there, the one who initiated stuff with a Nico and pushed a Nico out of the nest. Ironically, that bird could end up with 190. So it's a crazy world out there. We'll see what happens. But again, if you watch the Big Sur Sanctuary cam, that's the best place to watch to get any ideas of who she might end up with. And again, that's the beauty of that camera. It really brings you guys into the Condor space and really understanding what's going on. And it'll be pretty obvious when she's chosen a mate. So we're excited to see what happens, just like everybody else.
Hey, Joe, I just wanted to comment too, those 9 birds that we lost in ages totaled 77 years of Condor years. It's another way to sort of think about that. But anyway, not to dwell on that. I also wanted to have you mention the adults that just showed up, and they're kind of throwing their weight around at the carcasses. Can you ID those 2 birds?
Yeah, we have the local nesting pair, which is really cool. That's 566, which is Mike's bird. And then we have it's an interesting pair in that we think it's actually a trio. There's a male 711 that basically helps out at the nest with this pair, 566 and 725, and I believe 725 is there as well. I'm going to do some zoom in here.
I think it was a green tag, right?
Yeah, green 725. Yep. Yeah, I'm zooming in right now. There's a little bit of lag here. So that pair successfully nested last year, and unfortunately, their chick was one of the ones lost in the fire. So that was a little bit of a setback. But again, this pair has proven they can nest successfully, and we're anticipating 725 and 566 with the help of 711 nesting again this year nearby. So that'll be exciting, and that's really, to me, the crux of it, where you have these birds being released, and not only are they being taught, by these older birds, kind of how to good places to perch, where to eat in the wild, but now we have a pair down there showing them how to nest in the wild. So we really it was a cool kind of evolution, because we started releasing down at this area, and immediately a pair came down from Big Sur and established a territory nearby, kind of to tell these young birds, hey, we're the bosses down here. So it was a really nice bonus when we started releasing down here. We saw immediately that it brought attention to an area that was historically known for to be a popular nesting area for condors, and it was cool to start releasing and see that older condors immediately identified this area as a good nesting area. And they're it was one of the first nests in San Luis Obispo County in over 40 years. So the last area they nested was down near High Mountain area called Huff's Hole, and they didn't go back to that area, but they found another historic nest site, which was really cool, in the Coast Range. So we're just really excited to see these birds refilling these it's kind of like the nests are still there, so these birds we're releasing will quickly refill that niche. They're just kind of genetically just hardwired to go find these areas that they're naturally supposed to nest. So it's really cool to see them reunite with their past, so to speak, and pick up where the previous flock left off, to carry the torch for recovery. So pretty cool.
Now, Joe, you've made this look really easy today, but one of our viewers, Kathy, I think sort of knows that there's more involved to this than meets the eye. She wants to know, how does your crew prepare for a release like this? Can you give us a little behind the scenes on what your crew has been up to this week to prepare for today?
Yeah, so boy, just a lot of the non-glamorous stuff. This for them is the treat after a week of slugging carcasses around at night in inclement weather. Last night they were out putting these carcasses out in pouring rain. So the rewards aren't always clear when you're in the middle of a work, in the middle of a preparing for a release. And right now we have two awesome stellar interns, Mode and Jonathan, who are cutting their teeth on this sort of thing. And they've been a huge help. We can't say enough. And, I think that's probably something they'll take away from this experience is, all the groundwork, all the lead up time and the hours spent watching these birds in the pen to make sure there are no red flags. Their weights are good. Their behavior's good. Like we touched on throughout this presentation today of just how important it is. These birds are probably the most important thing, that they are socialized with each other. This social behavior thing I keep bringing up is so integral to work, to being a condor. So the crew goes to great measures to keep that intact and observe it without these birds ever knowing it. So we go to great extremes just in everything we do operationally is to stay out of view of the birds. We do a lot of things at night. There's a lot of grunt work going on to make sure this goes as smooth as it did today. So I think you bring up a great point. It's a perfect time to recognize the awesome efforts of the crew, which I'll give a raise hand for the crew. They're out there right now. I don't know if they're obviously not able to watch, but they might be able to watch this later. So, again, they're out there doing it. They're super passionate. I'm hoping to rope a couple in on my next Zoom next week to come in and chat with you guys to give us some firsthand accounts of how it was down there today. So I'm looking forward to that. And again, we have Stephanie down there taking these amazing photos along the way. We have our interns who are just getting introduced to this stuff, and we have Darren and Evan who are just pushing everything along. So it takes a great team to do this stuff. And again, I definitely want to recognize the hard work they've been doing. So yeah, we've got the group here. It's really cool to see the adults there now, the pair. Picture perfect day again. We had a picture perfect release. Couldn't ask for better. We have all the birds feeding together. I can't say enough about how great this group is, this release group this year. And again, kudos to our partners who help prepare these birds. It's a team effort to get them all ready from the time they hatch in captivity, and keeping them isolated from people and keeping them wild, all the way up to us bringing them up to the release pen and acclimating them and to the grand day like today of the actual release. So just an amazing sight to behold here. And again, on the next Zoom, I'll have an update on how the newest 5 are doing and how the first 4 are doing. So all 9 we'll have an update on, and as well as how the pinnacle birds are doing and the whole flock as a whole. So definitely tune in on that for the 17th. We do try to do those once a month. And again, it's a good time to catch up with, because, you get to hear about what happens off the cams, and, there's a lot going on, and it's also an exciting time. We're starting to see birds pair up. We're starting to see courtship displays. The Big Sur Sanctuary cam is the best spot, and this cam, to watch 566 and 725 do a courtship display, or you might even see them copulate. We're coming into that season. So the Big Sur cam is going to be exciting, obviously, because to see what happens with Redwood Queen and to see how the pairs shake out this year, because there's definitely was a reshuffling. So we're excited to see who picks who and see what unfolds. we're in this ride with you guys. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. And yeah, these birds are definitely doing some damage to these carcasses. I don't think they're going to be long for this world. I think these carcasses are going to get devoured pretty quickly.
Hey, let me just jump in. We have just a little bit more time left, so I want to make sure we get to some more questions. And then since you mentioned the Zoom chat on the 17th, I just want to remind everybody that's our regular once a month on Thursdays at 4 o'clock. We changed the dates in November and December because of the holidays, but it's usually the fourth Thursday, correct? Third or fourth?
Oh, we switched.
The last Thursday of every month.
Thursday. See, I need to get this straight myself. So anyway, just want to make sure everyone knows about that. And you can always sign up on our website the same way you did today, where you get.
I think you post a link on our comments.
It's in there.
Awesome.
Any other?
So this was so I would say this was an early Christmas gift to all of us, or at least to me, to have such a great release group go out. The weather cooperated, the stars kind of aligned, because again, that storm that was coming down was looking pretty ominous, and so it was really cool to see it skirt to the north. And it was nice to get some rain. Obviously, in California, we're always happy to get rain, but if we could get one day off for this this release, this was the day. So really happy to have such a beautiful day. We're really blessed with that today. So that's exciting, and things are looking great. I can't tell you how pleased we all are.
Christina writes, so good to have this moment of hope after the terrible fires, and a lot of questions wanting us to put these birds in perspective of the larger population. So there really is no San Simeon population per se. This is part of the Central California population. And the Central California population adds to the global population that occurs in California, Arizona, up into Utah. And at the beginning of 2020, I believe the statistics were about 335, give or take, birds in the wild global population. And we'll have more updated figures, I guess, at the end of the year. So we have these released birds in San Simeon. We can expect them at some time to go up to Big Sur and kind of work their way around the Central Coast and perhaps go to Pinnacles eventually. So they will be a part of the Central California population. And then also there is the potential for a new population up in Northern California. Joe, can you comment on the time schedule for the UROC effort for releasing birds in Northern California, and what involvement does Ventana Wildlife Society have in the releases that will occur up there?
Yeah, that's a really exciting project that's developing, and they're in the final stages of getting approval. They could start releasing as early as late spring of 2021. Again, they've also been delayed by COVID, as you know, that definitely slowed things down on their end. So there's some other things in there. And again, that's a collaboration between Redwood National Park, the National Park Service, and the Yurok tribe. So that's a pretty cool to have those two working together on the releases up there. And then obviously we came in to help. We were the closest sister site to what it will be like to release condors in Northern California. Our Big Sur site is very similar in terms of weather, terrain, obviously the redwoods. So it made a lot of sense for us to be up there to shepherd them through it. So I went up quite a few times to help them scope out potential release locations, talk them through some of the logistics and operational hurdles they'll have to get through. And just looking at that area, it's a whole new area. You know, it's part of the Condor's historic range, a really important part of the historic range. Plenty of habitat up there, incredible condor habitat. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. Some of the redwoods up there make our Big Sur redwoods look tiny. So it's very, to me, it shouts condor country. And I think the condors are going to thrive up there. And again, you know, just like anywhere, you have to get your ducks in a line. And I think Ventana has really served that role well. Kind of, we've been through it, and we've been able kind of to look at their whole layout and really help them fine tune things. And again, they're bringing a lot of skilled folks to the table. So it's been really awesome to work with the Yurok tribe and actually work with the cultural side of it, to hear the importance that condors played in their spirituality, their culture has been very humbling. So we're not only glad to get condors up there scientifically and bring the fly back, but to reunite this tribe with this important animal. So the whole thing has been an awesome thing to be part of, and I'm just glad Ventana's been able to support them. And we very much look forward to them and their first releases. And we're actually trying to help them get the similar to what we're doing here to hopefully have these releases live streaming like we are, because I think it is so exciting. But it's challenging up there. The country, like Big Sur, it's really big country, and we're gonna have to thread a needle, like I keep saying with this. But we have a lot of we've learned a lot on that level. So I'm really hoping we can help them there too, and get these the releases up there live streaming. I know personally I would love to see it. So keep your fingers crossed.
Now we have Dan Simeon release pin, and it was the Big Sur release pin that was destroyed in the fire. A question is, will the rebuild effort have the Big Sur pin functioning in time for Iniko's release next year?
That's a good question. There's a good chance Iniko may be released down at San Simeon. So to us, by the way the condor flies, they're not that far apart. In terms of population, it's going into the same population. It might not be right near its natal area, where it was nesting. But at that point, at that age for Iniko, she's going to be in a different mindset of just trying to find, that's a time she would have been Redwood Queen, and Kingpin would have been having her move along, so to speak. So it's a time for her independence and to make new friends, basically to bond with some of these other younger birds who might end up potentially being her mates down the road. So it's really, to us, I'm not banking on the Big Sur pin. There's a lot of work that has to be done. We're anticipating, just the winter, doing anything up there in the winter is really tough because of the weather is so extreme. So we know we're going to be delayed by that, but things are moving along really great. And Kelly can pipe in here too on the rebuild. This is probably a good time to bring that up, where we're at there. And we'll talk about it more next week at our Zoom, where we're at. But Kelly, maybe you can give a quick overview where we're at on the rebuild.
Yeah, thank you. So far we've been really focused on cleanup, getting the road cleared. We did a hazard tree assessment to keep everyone safe up there. Found 30 trees that have to come down. The whole place is just so damaged that a lot of it right now is just gearing up to go back to work up there. So we've done quite well fundraising wise, and many of you contributed to that. I want to thank you. We're up to $621,000, which is going to be used to reconstruct the Condor release pen, as well as a research facility / bunkhouse for our field crew. And we're getting drawings made, professional drawings made by an architect based out of Monterey. And, all the usual surveys, topographic surveys, soil surveys, all that kind of stuff that we need to do to get the permit from the county. We're going to get the water system back up and running. And once it's safe, the field crew can get back up there and get back to work. So it's going well. But I think, we're looking at about a 1.5 or 2 year time frame to completely rebuild. I'm hopeful we'll get a lot done this summer. And we're working real hard to get the permits in place for that to happen. But, we're in the coastal zone and things kind of move slowly sometimes in the permitting world. But everything's going well. So thanks for asking.
Awesome.
One question I'd like to get to from about 20 minutes ago, Angela was wanting to know if we do some lead testing for these birds. Can you describe that process? And did the destroyed facilities impact our efforts to test birds for lead? And in addition to the lead tests, can you describe the treatments that birds get if needed to reduce lead?
Yeah, so the lead test is it's a portable field unit. It's called a field analyzer. It was actually developed for humans, for doctors to use in remote areas to test folks that they thought were exposed to lead. So we adopted that instrument to be used in condors because we're actually catching these condors in remote areas. It gives us an idea of how high the lead is right on the spot. In recent time, we'll basically gear a test around if a bird's showing clinical signs, meaning it's physically ill, basically not cues to us, or the bird's acting weak, it's dropped in the hierarchy, it's not it's lethargic, typical stuff you would expect with a sick bird, and that triggers the capturing, and then all these other testings happen after it. So yeah, not having the big SIR pin right now is definitely impeding our ability to trap the birds. But fortunately, and this is probably one of the most important things about having collaborations and partners, we co-manage this flock with Pinnacles National Park and the National Park Service, and they still have their release pin that is actually also a trap pin, and they've been taking a bulk of the trap effort over to Pinnacles. And fortunately, most of the birds in the flock frequent the Pinnacles site as well as the Big Sur site. Again, it's the same flock, one flock, and they've managed to keep trapping birds and testing them. They actually trapped, I'll talk about it more next week, a Condor 901 nicknamed Scabbers that is a wild fledged bird that survived the fire. We didn't realize, we had a suspicion 901 was near the other birds, was in the canyon the night the fire burned through, and we found out 901 was captured for to be tested for lead, or I believe, to replace one of its transmitters. And upon grabbing the bird, they noticed burns. 901's feet were severely burned and starting to recover on their own. 901's beak had been burned, the lower part. The crop area, the breast of the bird had been burned. So that bird was immediately sent to LA Zoo, our partners down south who take such good care of these birds, and evaluated. And again, that was an example of a bird that was part of a routine trapping that we found these other issues with, and further signs that we did lose some birds in the fire, but we definitely had some birds that were there that survived that actually suffered injuries. And 901 is currently at the LA Zoo recovering. I'll have a more detailed update next week. But back to Mike, your question, yeah, it's definitely hindered us. The Big Sur pin was very strategic. So as Kelly said, we're going to try to expedite the rebuild as much as we can. But again, there's certain processes we can't speed up. And again, we got to keep our safety at the highest level throughout this. And, we're building, the sanctuaries in a very remote area. Just doing anything up there is logistically challenging. So we got to proceed cautiously and be careful about it. And thankfully, we have awesome partners like Pinnacles that can pick up the weight of recapturing some of these birds in case they do become ill from lead poisoning. And I think the lead poisoning topic is an important one because I think it's the fire was devastating, but it was also a reminder to us as a crew. Lead poisoning is still the #1 mortality threat to this species. Despite the losses of the fires this summer, it's mind-boggling that even something as devastating as that still pales in comparison to the number of condors we've lost from lead poisoning in the last 20 years. So it is still our number one threat and our number one focus. And today, you guys had been speaking with Mike Stake here. He's leading the way, and one of our biggest outreach projects in terms of getting non-lead ammunition in the hands of these hunters and ranchers that we've had such a great response from. And anyway, it might be a good segue for you, Mike. But again, the Big Sur pen is definitely going to be missed for a while. And one other thing I want to mention, the San Simeon pen, we're gearing up after the releases are done to start trapping birds down there too. So we'll keep you posted as far as that would be on the cam. We'll let you know if we're going to be doing that. But we just have to adapt, and again, we have great partners that are supporting us, and we couldn't do it without them. So you just got to make the best of it.
So obviously, this is quite a feast for the condors, quite a spread that they're enjoying right now. But as I well know, there are many feeding opportunities naturally along the coast. I've noticed that condors are very good at finding their own food. Joe, can you comment on the feeding possibilities for these birds in the San Simeon area? How soon do we expect them to feed on, carcasses in the wild? And perhaps you've seen some signs already of feeding, and perhaps maybe it's too soon. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That we definitely get that question a lot, and we've seen a full spectrum. I can remember a release in Big Sur, and the first carcass the birds found was a sea lion. They skipped our stillborns. They skipped the supplemental and went straight down to the coast, followed older birds, and their first feeding in the wild was on a wild carcass on the coast. For San Simeon, we had a similar thing happen 2 years ago. We released a couple birds, and we released a group of birds, and one of the birds, its first carcass was a cow that died on a ranch just east of the release site down in the foothills. And that was its very first feeding in the wild. And once it found that cow, obviously it had it all to itself, and it fed on it for a couple weeks, and then finally made its way back to the release site. And I imagine when he saw his buddies, he's like, "You guys won't believe what I found." They're probably like, "You're making that up. You didn't find a cow that big," So with these guys, the first 4 that were released, one of them is actually really in an area where it could find food on its own. 968 Wassuck is in an area right now, in that same area where that bird a couple years ago found the cow. So basically, we're pretty sure their condors are opportunistic, and what's really cool is their relationship with turkey vultures is pretty awesome, especially for these young birds. They will use those as guide birds. Turkey vultures are feeding on the same types of things condors are feeding on. They're scavenging, and condors, especially young ones, will see a group of turkey vultures feeding on something and go, "Hey, I got the upper hand here. I can just flush them all off." And so we found that turkey vultures have been a great asset to especially young birds learning how to feed on their own and leading the way. So far, we expect it usually within the first few months, but on average, it's right around 3 months they start finding food on their own, that we'll document it. And again, that's just what we see. But there's a big variation there. And it's just timing, there's just timing with stuff, availability in the area. There's some randomness to it, but if there's anything around, they'll find it.
It reminds me of a cartoon that we had at the cabin bunkhouse before it burned down. It was hand drawn by an artist that visited the site, and it was a group of condors with their wings out, like they do so often, and they were sunning. And the little caption says, "The carcass was this big."
That was totally it. I imagine we always joke about that because, that release bird had that huge cow to itself. for weeks and had no reason to leave. So it's pretty cool, just hung out with some turkey vultures for a couple weeks and then made its way back to tell the grand story.
Yeah, so I just noticed it's 10:35, so I don't know if you want to wrap it up, but this, we said we would go for an hour. One that stuck with us all the way through.
Yeah, I think maybe, Joe, if you can just recap future viewing opportunities. I know there's a Zoom webinar coming up soon. Thanks, everyone, for your questions. Sorry that we couldn't get to all of them, but there is another opportunity to ask those questions for the next Zoom meeting. Joe, when will that be?
Yeah, that'll be on the 17th. So next week, next Thursday at 4 p.m. And yeah, I'm hoping to have a couple of the field crew. Definitely, I think Darren will be there. Maybe I can get Evan and Stephanie in on it too. Be a great time to ask them some questions about how the release birds are doing. Yeah, and we can answer, like you said, Mike, any questions we didn't get to this time. But again, just a huge thank you to everyone, and just stay tuned in. There's lots of action to happen the rest of the day. We're gonna end our commentary here, but again, it's a really huge milestone today, considering where we came from this summer with the fires. This is such a great, if anything, it definitely for me it instills hope. Our morale as a crew was pretty down after those fires. So, for me personally, and I know for the rest of the crew, I can't say enough for your support. This has been a huge day for us, and glad you guys get to partake in it, because it is really, if you only knew how much hard work these guys are doing, and how awesome these birds are. So we're just really excited at the future and doing more releases and watching, see what happens with nesting this year.
And one last, is there a way that people can get on the email list to be notified of these Zoom webinars? Can they get that on our website? How do people, what can we do to get people informed and involved with these?
Yeah, I think that's all on our website. We can post another link in the comments again right before we sign out here. But yeah, our website has everything. Where to watch the cams, the bios, definitely to learn more about the individuals. The bios are really great. And again, those are found on our website. And again, you can view the cams on the Explore feed. Explore has it on their website and the YouTube site, and you can watch both cams on our website. So lots of places to watch the cam. Yeah, and our website's going to have a lot more detail about the birds, the personalities, the links to the Zooms. And again, just a big shout out to everyone, all of you, to explore.org, Ranch Wi-Fi, all our donors, just everyone who made it possible, all our partners. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course, last but not least, to all the awesome condors. They make it all possible, right?
That's great. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and I hope to see you again at the next Zoom.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.